Welcome to Introduction to Economics. In this first learning outcome, we build the vocabulary you'll use for the whole unit, and every bit of it grows from one simple truth. Our resources are limited, but our wants never seem to be. So, what actually is economics? At its heart, it's the study of how we make choices when we can't have everything we want. Think about your own weekly budget. With only so much money coming in, you're forever deciding between, say, a night out and topping up your savings. Economics just scales that same everyday juggling act up to businesses and whole governments. And we usually split it into microeconomics, the small picture of firms and markets, and macroeconomics, the big picture of the whole economy. Let's nail down 3 words you'll hear again and again. Scarcity simply means there isn't enough to go round, so we're forced to choose. Needs are the things we genuinely can't live without: food, water, a roof over our heads. While wants are the nice-to-haves, like a fortnight in Spain or the latest phone. The trick is telling the two apart. You need a coat for winter, but you want the designer one. Because resources are scarce, every society, from a tiny village to the whole of the UK, has to answer 3 big questions. What should we produce? How should we produce it? And who gets it once it's made? Picture a baker with 1 sack of flour deciding whether to make bread or cakes, how to bake them, and who to sell them to. Every one of those choices means giving something else up, and that thread runs through this entire unit. To produce anything at all, we combine 4 ingredients, and economists call them the factors of production. There's land, all the natural stuff like soil, water, and oil; labour, the human effort, both muscle and brain power; capital, the machines, tools, and buildings we make to help us produce; and enterprise, the person willing to pull it all together and take the risk. Think of a coffee shop: the land it sits on, the barista's work, the espresso machine, and the owner who gambled their savings to open the doors. Each of those 4 factors earns its own kind of reward. Land earns rent, labour earns wages and salaries, capital earns interest, and enterprise earns profit. So when you rent a flat, that payment is the reward to land. When your monthly pay lands in your account, that's the reward to your labour. It's a tidy way of remembering who gets paid what across the economy. Here's one of the most powerful ideas in the whole subject: opportunity cost. It's the value of the next best thing you gave up to get what you chose. If you spend Saturday working a shift, the opportunity cost is the revision or the lie-in you sacrificed. And it isn't only about money. A government that spends more on defence has that much less for the NHS. The real cost of anything is what you couldn't do instead. Let's make that concrete with a worked example. Say a local council has £2 million and must choose between building a new library or resurfacing the town's roads. If they pick the library, the opportunity cost isn't the money. It's the smoother roads everyone now has to do without. The price tag is the same either way. What really matters is the benefit they had to give up, and good decisions weigh that up, honestly. Now for a diagram that pulls scarcity, choice, and opportunity cost together: the production possibility frontier, or PPF. It shows the most an economy could make of 2 goods if every resource were fully used. Imagine a country choosing between machines for the future and consumer goods for right now. The curve maps out every possible mix. It's usually drawn bowed outwards because resources aren't equally good at making both things. Land that's brilliant for farming may be useless for building cars. Let's learn to read that curve. Any point sitting on the line means you're using all your resources efficiently, and sliding from one point to another, gaining more of one good, always means giving up some of the other. That's opportunity cost in picture form. A point tucked inside the curve tells you resources are lying idle. Think of a recession with people out of work, while a point beyond the curve is simply out of reach for now. When the economy grows, the whole curve shifts outwards. Picture a country that can pour its resources into either healthcare or education. Flat out, it might manage 100 hospitals and no schools, or 120 schools and no hospitals, or some blend in between. To build 20 more schools, it has to shuffle along the curve and give up a few hospitals, and that sacrifice is the opportunity cost. If it slips into recession with resources going spare, it ends up producing inside the curve. But new technology or a bigger workforce pushes the curve out, so it can have more of both. So how does a society actually decide what, how, and for whom to produce? That's the job of its economic system, and systems really differ on two things: who owns the resources and who calls the shots. There are three main types: the free market, the command economy, and the mixed economy in between. In truth, nearly every country is a mixed economy, but the pure versions are handy for comparison, a bit like knowing hot and cold before you understand warm. Let's put the three side by side. In a free market, resources are privately owned and shared out by prices through supply and demand. In a command economy, the state owns almost everything, and a central plan decides who gets what. And a mixed economy blends the two, some private ownership, some public, with the government playing a role. Most of what follows is really about where a country lands on that spectrum. Let's zoom in on the free market. Here, resources are owned by private individuals and firms. The engine driving everything is self-interest and profit, and prices do the organising with barely any government involvement. Consumers effectively vote with their wallets, and firms scramble to give them what they'll pay for. The United States is the classic example of an economy that leans heavily this way. Just think how quickly new products appear the moment there's money to be made. The command economy is the mirror image. The state owns the resources on everyone's behalf. The goal is social welfare and hitting the plan's targets rather than private profit. And a central authority decides what's made and how it's shared. Prices and output are set by planners in an office, not by shoppers in a market. The former Soviet Union worked this way, and today North Korea and Cuba lean in the same direction. Every system has its upsides and downsides, so let's be fair to the free market. On the plus side, you get huge choice. The profit motive pushes firms to be efficient and inventive, and resources rush to wherever they're wanted with no expensive planning bureaucracy. But the flip side is real. The gap between rich and poor can grow wide. Things like street lighting and defense get underprovided because nobody profits from them. Firms may happily pump out pollution, and a monopoly can squeeze its customers. Think of a life-saving drug price sky high simply because one company controls it. The command economy flips those strengths and weaknesses around. Because the state is in charge, wealth can be shared more evenly, jobs and basic services can be guaranteed, and resources can be aimed straight at national priorities like housing or defense. The catch is that shoppers get little choice. Shortages and gluts are common. Weak incentives drag productivity down. And central planning is desperately hard to get right. Remember the old stories of queues for bread while warehouses overflowed with the wrong goods. In the middle sits the mixed economy, which pairs a private sector run by individuals and firms with a public sector run by the state. Most things, your weekly shop, your bank, the car you drive, come through markets, but the government still provides some services and regulates the rest. So supermarkets and manufacturers sit in the private sector, while the NHS, state schools, and the police sit in the public one. The idea is to enjoy the efficiency of markets while stepping in to fix their failures and keep things fair, and the UK is a textbook example. Let's line all three up on the key features. Ownership runs from fully private in a free market to fully state-owned under command, to a bit of both in a mixed economy. The motive shifts from profit to social welfare to a balance of the two. And resources are allocated by prices, by central planning, or by markets working alongside government. The United States leans free market, North Korea leans command, and countries like the UK, France, and Germany sit comfortably in the mixed middle. Here's the important reality: no country is purely one thing. Even the market-loving United States runs public schools, Medicare, and its armed forces through the state. And even heavily planned economies like North Korea and Cuba let a little private trading go on at the edges. The UK is firmly mixed. Private firms sell us most of our goods, while the state runs the NHS and schools. So the real argument is never simply markets versus the state, it's how much of each strikes the right balance. So where does the UK actually land? It's a mixed economy with a big private sector and a substantial public one. Markets set most prices, but the government is never far away, shaping things through taxes, spending, regulation, and public services. Getting your head around these three systems is exactly what helps you make sense of the big debates: whether to privatise a railway, how much to spend on public services, and how large a role the state should play. And that leads us neatly into Learning Outcome 2, where we turn to the UK economy itself. Let's gather up what we've covered. The basic economic problem is scarcity, limited resources against unlimited wants, which forces us to choose. Production rests on 4 factors: land, labour, capital, and enterprise, each earning its reward of rent, wages, interest, and profit. Opportunity cost is the value of the next best option you give up, and the production possibility frontier shows scarcity, choice, and that trade-off all on one diagram, shifting outwards as the economy grows. And the 3 economic systems, free market, command, and mixed, differ in who owns resources and who decides, with the UK sitting firmly in the mixed camp. That brings Learning Outcome 1 to a close. You should now be comfortable with the economic problem, the factors of production, opportunity cost, the production possibility frontier, and the 3 types of economic system. To deepen all of this, do spend some time with the further reading gathered on this slide, the core economics textbooks, the weekly and monthly economic commentary, and the data websites where you can watch these ideas play out in real UK figures. The case studies on recent interest rate decisions and the ups and downs of national output are especially worth a look. Everything you need is on the Moodle for this unit, so take your time and explore before you tackle the assignment.